First of all, thank you everybody, and particularly Dr. Arnab Das and Mr. Jeff Pine from NESA. And good morning to those from the United States, and good evening to all of us over here in India. And Dr. Thomas Lynch, I think you brought out some very, very important and very relevant points. And I'm sure that if these are followed up, we will be all the more better off as far as underwater domain awareness is concerned, particularly from the security perspective. So in my intervention today, I will not take more than 15 minutes, and I wish to cover and share my thoughts under the subjects. First of all, submarine capabilities and deployment of the PLA Navy. Then what are the underwater security challenges for us, particularly in India, in the Indian Ocean region? A mention about the geography of this area and the choke points leading into the Indian Ocean and how they affect submarine deployments, and how do we address these challenges. And that's going to be quite some doing. It'll take quite some doing to address these challenges. And finally, suggestion or recommendation on what kind of security framework will be useful for all of us. So let me first touch upon the submarine capabilities, particularly of China. And let us take a scan of what kind of submarine fleet does the PLA Navy have at the moment. Soon after World War II and after establishment of the communist regime, China in 1949, the Chinese embarked upon a very massive submarine building program. And in due course, they did have a large number of submarines, but they were mostly coastal submarines. And in numbers, I would say they touched nearly 100, but they couldn't go beyond the first island chain. But then leapfrogging to the present time, we find that in numbers, they have now approximately 60 submarines in total, of which 6 are SSBNs of the Jin class, which carry 12 JL2 SLBMs with a range of approximately 8,000 kilometers. And then you have the 6 SSNs, or the nuclear attack submarines of the Shang class, which basically have cruise missiles and torpedoes. And in addition, they have nearly 48 diesel-electric conventional submarines, of which nearly half, or I would say about 20 odd, are the Yuan class with the air-independent propulsion systems. The remaining are the older variety, the Romeo class, the Kilo class, the Ming class, and the Song class, which are not capable of going beyond a few hundred kilometers from their coast. So and the point is the PLA Navy has now embarked on a massive expansion, modernization drive for its Navy, and particularly its submarine fleet. And it may soon touch from 60, it may touch 80 submarines in due course, and most of them will be very modern and very capable submarines. The worry to all of us is particularly the SSBNs and the SSNs, which have capability which can allow them to be deployed in very far off regions of both the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. In the Indian Ocean regions, the other submarine population, or the submarine operating countries, are Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and of course India, besides Indonesia. Pakistan particularly has 5 of the remaining older Augusta 70 and 3 Augusta 90B. They have the French origin submarines. 3 of them are air-independent propulsion. So basically that gives it very long endurance. It's a conventional submarine. It does not have to come to surface for battery charging or come to periscope depth for battery charging very often. So that's the advantage of AIP. But more concerning is the fact that China is now building the same Yuan class AIP submarines, 8 of them, and orders have been placed by Pakistan on China. And because of some delays, the first submarine could not be delivered this year, but is likely to be delivered commencing next year. And so you'll find more modern AIP submarine for the first time being deployed in the Indian Ocean region, and that too of Chinese origin. China has also delivered or supplied two very old Ming-class submarines to Bangladesh and one Ming-class submarine to Myanmar. In addition, China has also invested in developing submarine bases in both in Bangladesh and Myanmar. But what is more worrying now is, besides all these nuclear submarines and the EIP fitted submarines, China has now developed extra large uncrewed underwater vehicles. And these vehicles are basically autonomous underwater vehicles and can be launched from any platform or a specially capable platform, and can be and has an endurance of many, many days, perhaps 15 to 20 days, and radius of operation of which may touch up to 3 to 5,000 kilometers. And so that makes it very, very potent, particularly because it has a flank array sonar and can carry torpedoes and not missiles, of course. But the more worrying part is that these are autonomous vehicles and they operate purely on artificial intelligence, and there is no the human out of the loop mechanism, the human out of the loop. Because of human out of the loop, these submarines, can pose a great danger to even unsuspecting vessels, and therefore these artificial intelligence-driven vehicles are something that can cause great worry to all mariners and seafarers if they are deployed in the Indian Ocean region. This is a completely new development, and many countries in the world have not perfected the technology as yet. But China, it appears, has already deployed them, but full details are still not available in the open domain. So what are the security challenges that we face in the Indian Ocean region as far as underwater security is concerned? Coming back to China, we see that China is the biggest extra-regional player as of now, other than, of course, the United States Navy in the Indian Ocean region. And they started deploying their units, their ships, to begin with, on the pretext of anti-piracy missions, which is quite specious because you don't require submarines for dealing with piracy. But that is what they did. And from 2008 onwards, there has been a continuous, regular, and sustained submarine deployments by the PLA Navy in the Indian Ocean region on the pretext of dealing with piracy in the Gulf of Aden. It is believed that, as I just mentioned, they are uncrewed underwater vehicles have also been deployed in the Indian Ocean region, but these reports are not yet confirmed. As we see from 2008 onwards, China has made concerted efforts to establish full-fledged permanent bases in the Indian Ocean region. And Djibouti is an example of the first military base for the PLA forces, which has been established outside the mainland China for the first time. In addition, Pakistan and Sri Lanka have been giving a warm welcome to all their ships and submarines, and both of them have made port calls in both these countries on regular basis. And these visits continue throughout the year. What is more worrying is that besides PLA Navy units, we also have research vessels operating in the Indian Ocean region with the sole purpose of mapping the underwater seabed for information and data which can be used for underwater warfare in future. including against, uh, as has been brought out, including against undersea cables. So as you see that a large number of submarine are operating in the Indian Ocean region, not only of the PLA Navy, but also those belonging to the Pakistan Navy, to Bangladesh Navy, to Myanmar Navy, to Malaysian Navy, Indonesian Navy, and all of this complicates the whole security environment even further. And the reason is quite obvious, because in all of this, to detect, classify, and identify a PLA Navy submarine is going to be extremely challenging, uh, since the only source of doing that, the only way of available as of now, today, of detecting, classifying, and identifying any underwater object is through use of underwater sound. And as all the experts sitting over here are fully aware that it is far, it is it is not as easy as is made out. The reason is quite obvious. Any detection, classification, identification of an underwater objects requires enormous effort of time, resources, and assets. Ships, submarines, aircraft have to be deployed for persistent surveillance, monitoring, and tracking. And this really is a huge challenge, and it cannot be done unilaterally by any one country, because the assets, the time, energy, effort required for doing that does not permit uh, with the limited assets that most countries can deploy. Now, a word about the geography and the choke points of the region. We find that the access to the Indian Ocean region from the Pacific side is basically through four choke points. First is the Malacca Straits, then you have the Lombok Straits, the Sunda Straits, and the Ombai Wattar Straits. And all these straits basically are in the Indian Ocean, in the Indonesian archipelago, but all cannot be used by submarines. Malacca cannot be used because submarines have to transit on surface, and which is obviously a total giveaway. Then when we look at Lombok Straits, they are deep enough for submarine to transit completely submerged, and so is the Ombai Wattar Strait, which is deep enough for submarines to transit completely submerged. But out of all these, the Ombai Wattar Straits are the deepest straits, and the reason why you require deep straits is particularly for nuclear submarines. At a minimum depth of 200 meters is recommended for safe transit, and these kind of depths are mostly seen in the Ombai Wattar and to some extent on the Lombok Straits. So actually that poses a big challenge to PLA submarines that may wish to enter into Indian Ocean region, because out of four, the straits which are most suitable are just two, Lombok and Ombai Wattar. The other point of geography that needs to be mentioned over here is that the PLA Navy has basically two submarine operating bases. One is on the Hainan Island, which is in the South China Sea, and the second base is basically in the northern part of the country near Qingdao. But the advantage of the Hainan Island base is that submarines operating out of this base are not constrained by the challenges of the inner island chain, whereas those operating from the Qingdao base have to transit either on surface or through the shallow waters of the straits between the inner island chain and the Pacific Ocean. And therefore, the Hainan base is the one which is more preferred for deploying the SSBNs and SSNs, rather for basing their SSNs and the SSBNs. And this then particularly makes it more difficult, more challenging for us in the Indian Ocean region, because Hainan is much closer. And therefore, transit time from the Hainan base into the Indian Ocean region is much less compared to from Qingdao into the Indian Ocean region. Between the SSBNs and SSNs, it is almost a given that SSN is likely to be it would be it would be preferable to deploy SSNs into the Indian Ocean for the simple reason that they have a very long submerged endurance, whereas SSBNs with the JL2 SSBN with the 8,000-kilometer range need not actually be deployed in the Indian Ocean region for its deterrence task or deterrence patrol, which it can very well do when deployed in the South China Sea itself. So our greatest concern is from the SSNs that may be deployed, or to some extent even the normal AIP fitted Yuan class diesel electric boats. So what do we do to address the challenge of the PLA Navy submarines, and how do we secure ourselves from this underwater threat in peacetime, in crisis, or in conflict? Firstly, we have to have knowledge about the location of these submarines, and this is easier said than done, and has already been pointed out by the previous speaker. We need to have a better interoperability, particularly in underwater domain awareness. As of now, I feel this is a weak area. Interoperability, to some extent, we have moved ahead in maritime domain awareness, in other aspects of warfare, but underwater domain awareness is something that is a lot of work still needs to be done to achieve that kind of interoperability and collaboration. The other point that I would like to bring out here is that tracking, monitoring underwater submarines, submarines operating in a dive condition is a huge challenge. The number of assets required, basically airborne assets are the best suited for this, but no Navy, let alone the Indian Navy, has enough assets to deal with this huge challenge. And therefore, one way to overcome this would be to concentrate on the choke points, and have a well-established monitoring system over there, as I have mentioned, particularly in the two straits, the Lombok and the Umbawatra straits. Setting up forward operating bases is another way of overcoming some of the challenges posed by distance and endurance, particularly for aircraft. Next point is collaboration and cooperation between like-minded navies. To some extent, this is already happening by way of the Malabar series of exercises. Quad is another forum in which quite a bit is discussed. In Quad, we now find that the Indo-Pacific MDA initiative has taken root, and they have accepted the need to have cooperation in maritime domain awareness. So I think the day is not far when similarly Indo-Pacific UDA initiative we should be seeing in the days to come, because if we do that, then the framework for sharing information for underwater domain awareness then will become formalized, and that is what really will make a huge difference in underwater domain awareness as far as the security is concerned. Information exchange is another area, information and intelligence exchange, that countries who have specific information, any kind of information on underwater deployments by PLA submarines, we need to have a formal mechanism, a framework for that. And the most important aspect of underwater domain monitoring is to have fixed seabed sensors and towed surveillance array ships, as also extra large UUVs. These are the three areas of technology that particularly we in India need to move towards. And in this regard, there is a lot of scope for technology sharing and technology transfer from United States to India for developing our fixed sea-based sensors, towed arrays, surveillance arrays, and extra large UUVs. Recently, the Indian government has given sanction and approval for constructing two SSNs, the nuclear attack submarines, and also signed the contract with Lockheed for the signed the contract for the Sea Guardian 9QB Hail UAVs, and both of these, when inducted, will make a huge difference to underwater domain awareness, since the Sea Guardian Hail UAV also has ASW capability. So in summary, in the end, I would simply make very quick three recommendations. Firstly, three recommendations for strengthening the security framework for underwater domain awareness in the Indian Ocean regions. And these three, and the three pillars for strengthening the security arrangement rest on, firstly, technology. And I've already mentioned the three areas in which technology will be more than welcome from the United States. Then having adequate assets, combined assets of 2 or 3 countries definitely will be far more useful in tracking underwater submarines instead of just one country. And then collaboration, cooperation, and information exchange. Mechanism for this needs to be worked upon, and my recommendation is that we should have Information Fusion Center for UDA in the times to come, very much like the IFC IOR, the Information Fusion Center, Indian Ocean region for MDA, which has been so successful, and it is a multi-nation effort and already ongoing in and well-established center in Gurgaon near Delhi. So finally, in summary, I would say that underwater domain awareness to strengthen the security of Indian Ocean region is something which requires cooperation, collaboration, technology transfer, and information exchange. And I do hope that the participants in this seminar are able to give traction to some of the actionable recommendations. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.